I want to welcome you to today's webinar, Integrating Collective Giving into Your Individual Giving Program. During this webinar, we will hear from Deborah Polster Applefeld, Director of Youth Philanthropy for the Mitzi and Henry Seaman B'nai Tzedek Youth Philanthropy Program at the Columbus Jewish Foundation, and from Andrea Cohen, Director of the B'nai Tzedek Youth Philanthropy Program at the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater Phoenix. We're going to paste their full bios into the chat box so you can read more about them. And I just want to invite any of you who are on Twitter to follow along and join in the conversation by tweeting to @JTFN or using the hashtag #TeenPhilanthropy. And with that, we're going to begin today with Andrea, so you can take it away.
Good morning, or good afternoon to the rest of you. I am the staff person who was asked to launch the program 8 years ago. And our program was initially developed as individual B'nai Tzedek program, and we didn't start a youth foundation until our 3rd year. And I do want to stop here and just say logistically, I recognize that all of our programs are quite different, and I just want to let you know ours is with a $500 minimum. There's no automatic match when starting our B'nai Tzedek funds. And our program is a 20-year minimum relationship with the intent to convert each one of our funds into a lifelong fund. When we launched the program, we understood that we had to respect the territorial nature of rabbis. So we developed programming that would enhance rather than compete with our synagogues. Therefore, we loosely followed the Grinspoon Model of 3 to 4 programs a year, and it was great. But despite our initial success and continued growth, we found that teens and parents were wanting more from us programmatically. And this is really where the Youth Foundation enters the picture. Early in the life of our program, I was very lucky to attend a JTFN conference where significant attention was paid towards the debate and development of best practices in our emerging field. And the 2 program methodologies were debated, and I saw tremendous advantages in both models. I was in a very unique position professionally, and so I went to the conference, I came home, and then I brought the idea of creating a youth foundation to our CEO. She was quite receptive, and we were able to start the program. And it truly, starting a youth foundation, truly has transformed our work, and I'm thrilled that we made the jump. Logistically, I thought we would only have to raise the grant-making dollars, and that would be that would be the biggest hurdle we had. But what we also really needed to consider was the major reallocation of staff time. The Youth Foundation now dominates my time between the meetings, the curriculum development, running the competitive grant-making program, and the frequent communication with the teens and their parents. It does take up quite a bit of my time, but it's very much well worth the investment. Let's see. So why did we start a youth foundation? Besides the desire for a group feeling, we started for these reasons. Really, because we wanted that greater opportunity for engagement and learning, because we wanted a group experience, because we could. We could be a well-rounded program that could give teens an amazing group experience and then have a lifelong financial relationship with them as fund holders. So when I saw the debate between the 2 modalities, I really felt like, yeah, we can give the kids the amazing group experience that a youth foundation will offer, and we have a tie to them for the rest of their life. We don't have to worry about creating alumni programming to bring them back in. They have a financial relationship with our foundation, and they have a fund that can potentially be theirs for the rest of their life. The unintended benefits, with the success of our program and holding B'nai Tzedek funds as a prerequisite, we've had many teens actually establish funds in order to gain access to our Youth Foundation program. Second, I really feel like the activities of the Youth Board are far more engaging, and so we've had a significant amount more press given to our activities because of the Youth Foundation. And I was trying really hard to figure out the nicest way to say this very politically, but many of our Jewish Community Foundation board members are also donors to the B'nai Tzedek program and the Youth Foundation program. The first time we had a teen come to a board of directors meeting to present grants for approval and present a summary of their activities for the year, the donors in the room absolutely lit up and were so proud of the accomplishments of these teens. What we have found is that when teens speak about their Youth Foundation experience, the significant group experience, our donors are absolutely thrilled, and it has actually worked to our benefit for fundraising, and that's been a lovely unintended benefit. Who's eligible to be on our Youth Foundation board? You must be a B'nai Tzedek fund holder in rising grades 9 through 12. I included the WUFU link here for the applications. We used to do them in paper. The teens respond much well, as you know, to things online, and so we use WUFU and put out our application that way. And we ask teens to contribute towards $200 towards the operational cost of the program, not the grant-making dollars, but the operational cost of the program. This is a voluntary contribution, but most of the teens will actually donate those dollars. In terms of our program, you can read for yourself a summary of our year. It does vary year to year a little bit because we have so many repeating teens and we don't want to bore them. But really, this is what our year will look like. We will have a retreat in the fall. It's either an overnight at a local resort, or this past year we went to a conference center. And I will say that while it was wonderful to have all the teens spending the day on the ropes course, it was 115 degrees out, and yeah, we're not doing that again. It was just too hot. Promotion in our community. It was very easy to start our Youth Foundation because of the relationship we had with the rabbis in the community. And with the press that we started to receive early on from the program, the foundation really developed a cachet and is seen as a very prestigious activity in town. What I do want to highlight on this slide here is the bottom bullet. Not only will we have teens present their big checks at our end-of-the-year program, but we've asked all of our grantees to then invite our teens to their board meetings so the teens can present the checks to their board of directors as well. And having our kids get out to all these different nonprofits and exposing their board members to our teens and our philanthropic contributions has really been a wonderful way to promote the program in the community. In terms of the relationship between the Jewish Community Foundation and our teens, our philanthropy program has not only become the face of our foundation and wonderful for foundation PR, the foundation is now really looking to our Youth Foundation teens as the Jewish Community Foundation's leaders. Right now we have 2 teens that serve on our Jewish Community Foundation Grants Committee. We will have 2 additional teens being elected to our Jewish Community Foundation Board of Directors for 1-year terms. And our alumni, our recent college grads who are back in town, are now being recruited to serve on various foundation committees, really as a first step towards board service. Our foundation truly sees these young adults who have gone through our program as the future of our foundation. And finally, while many of our teens engaged first as individual B'nai Tzedek teens, it was the Youth Foundation experience that I believe truly cemented their lifelong connection to philanthropy. This last slide is really filled with some very proud mama moments for me. And the picture of the big check is so significant to me. Two of our alumni reconnected in college as members of a microlending program. And as graduates of our program, now working towards creating a microlending program at the business school at Arizona State University, these teens wrote a grant proposal to our Youth Foundation, and instead of going on the site visit as a teen, they were the ones being questioned. The proposals that they submitted to us over the years have by far been the strongest proposals from any of the other grantees we've dealt with. And when they accept their grant checks, it's phenomenal because they speak from the experience of being on our board. So it's been a wonderful experience. And if you only have an individual program, I highly suggest you morphing it and making the jump to giving those kids a group experience.
Great. Andrea, thank you so much. So we've heard from the first of our two presenters today, and a couple of folks called in a little late. We have two presenters on today's call, but we're taking a little time in between to take questions. So does anybody have any questions for Andrea about either the details of her individual giving program or the integration of the group giving within, or the Teen Foundation within her program? I encourage you to type them into the chat, and I'll let folks ask them themselves as well if by unmuting on an individual basis. So please take a minute to see if you have any questions before we move on to our second presenter. All right, maybe we'll have some more questions as we move on to the second part. You can always ask Andrea questions at the end as well. So thank you again, Andrea. It was really informative. We're going to move on now to hear from Debbie, and we'll be, I think, earlier you saw her her full bio in the chat box, so you can scroll up for that if you missed it and you joined us since then. And Debbie, take it away.
Hi, I'm Debbie Applefeld with the Columbus Jewish Foundation in Columbus, Ohio. And we have the Mitzi and Henry Saman Youth Philanthropy Program here, just to sort of give you a sense of where we sit in the world. I'm having trouble moving the slide. There we go.
You got it?
The Columbus Jewish Foundation is an independent foundation sitting in Columbus, Ohio, and we have about 14,500 Jewish households here. So it's probably a medium-sized community with our own foundation. The foundation is not part of the local federation. We're a standalone foundation and consistently sit in the top 20 within the federation foundation system. We manage more than 1,500 funds and endowments and provide grants for innovative ideas in the community under community grants, Jewish education and literacy, overseas needs, Jewish arts, social justice, and support for the Jewish needy. Our B'nai Tzedek Fund program is made possible due to the generosity of the Saman family. Their investment makes this whole program and the Youth Foundation possible for all of our teens, and we run it a little bit differently because of that generosity. We have currently 426 B'nai Tzedek fund holders, and our funds are active for 10 years. So when they finish up those college years and sort of embark on their own households and their own professional careers, that's when we ask them to think about becoming an adult in our system, as we say. We get about 30 to 50% of eligible teens by year, which is not too bad. we have a very generous matching money option to open the funds where we provide 3-to-1 matching. So we do open funds with $500 amount, but the family only provides $125 of that. We have a very low threshold to engagement, and we work to make it as easy as possible for teens to participate in our program. In that way, we have no spending rule, we have minimal restrictions on eligible donation recipients, and a minimum balance which is covered by those matching dollars by the same and family. The kids retain individual control over all donations, timing, amounts, and purpose so that they can feel empowered to give. And the goal here is really just for them to give, to practice giving, and to turn it into a lifelong habit. The priorities for this program are to engage as many teens as possible, to reinforce tzedakah, to experience giving as within their power, and develop personal giving strategy over time and experience. And we do find that that happens, that as kids enter the college years, they start to become more specific about content of where they're giving money to. It's not so much, my friend is running a race and I want to help promote them, so I'm going to sponsor them. It's much more directed into personal interests. And then a secondary goal for the B'nai Tzedek Fund program is to engage a broader, younger segment of the local Jewish families into the work of the foundation. The Columbus Jewish Youth Foundation is the teen foundation model in a very traditional sense. We worked with high school, college counselors to determine elements of the program which make the experience valuable for college application citation and which give a little something back to the kids who are involved. We have 18 participants selected each year, and they collectively grant $5,000 or more, generally $5,000, in a group giving model. The participants are selected to represent the community at large, and that's very important to us. We consider age, school, synagogue geography, whether they're returning or new to the program, and other factors of quote-unquote diversity of where they live and who they represent at the table. And we also look for specific kids to fill some of those holes if we should have them in the application process. For example, if all of the applicants come from one city or from one synagogue, then we may look elsewhere and actually ask people to apply for the program. Many of those selected are the overscheduled kids in town. We have the regional president of BBYO. We have the captain of a couple of our city sports teams. We have kids taking 5 AP courses. We try to balance those who are super active in Jewish life with those who are active in secular roles so that they can represent the community properly. And they must be a B'nai Tzedek fund holder to apply to this program. We prefer that they've been in B'nai Tzedek a minimum of a year and have made a gift from their personal fund so that they know what it's like to make that kind of decision. The teens create a new program each year, from guidelines to evaluation, and they follow a leadership model of being jointly accountable for community dollars, and they do not hold leadership positions. That's something that as a group they decide from year to year. Consistently for the last 3 years at least, they've decided not to have officers, but to act as a group of peers and equals in the room. This program operates like a grant committee of the foundation and grants foundation dollars, which is part of the reason I described what our foundation holds and how we operate at the beginning. They follow the same rules as our adult full grant committees. The process is not completely the same. It's somewhat abbreviated, but the process and the accountability is the same as for one of our grant committees for one of our other funded areas. The benefits to the community of our youth foundation are awareness of organizations doing Jewish work in the community, not only the Jewish organizations. The teens become educated about work that organizations like Life Care Alliance, which provides Meals on Wheels, does here. One time they funded the Kosher Meals on Wheels program, but they are aware of organizations in town that do work on behalf of this community. The teens own a piece of responsibility for community programming, so that when it comes time to develop programs, sometimes they're consulted. Teens interact across neighborhoods and work together, and our community is somewhat spread out geographically, so that's something they're not often in the room together. And teens gain experience in lay leadership, community volunteer, and board work. And that's one of our long-term objectives, is to help train these kids to be active adults in the nonprofit philanthropic sector. Teens are spokesmen for foundation to peers, parents, and their schools. The benefits to the teens can be projected out as benefits to the community at large. Teens become collaborative, educated, and strategic in their approach to solving community problems. Wherever they land as adults, they're ready to engage at a sophisticated level from the start, we hope. Past participants are engaged in community life at the board level here and elsewhere, meaning they sit on boards, they actively seek out opportunities to be engaged at the leadership level, and they know they can do it. They've had a little practice at it. Some of this is likely due to the profile of the kid who would be active in a program like this anyway. They're the movers and shakers. But they learn and retain an awful lot as they serve on this board. They do get a sense that their work doesn't take place in a vacuum. They experience levels of engagement from peer-to-peer collaboration to direct equal dialogue with community nonprofit leaders to having to defend their recommendations to our Board of Trustees to representing the foundation at events they funded. There are lots of layers in the way that they participate and then what goes back into the community from that experience. The benefits to the teens are that they learn those skills, and very specifically they look at this program as a service and learning and leadership experience that they can use. They can literally use it. National Honor Society applications just went in last month. I can't tell you how many of the juniors and seniors on my board asked for the number of hours that they participated over the last 4 years, and there's a whole tracking process for how that gets quantified and qualified as leadership or service, and it works. They acquire skills that are transferable to other areas. They learn advocacy, program evaluation, budget, research, how to come to consensus in a group environment, how to present to community leaders, and how to challenge community leaders on their presentations. A little bit of parliamentary procedure, communication, and a whole bunch of other not so direct skills. Many participants have used these experiences as anecdotal support for applications they're putting in, and all the applications are very strong. We write good recommendation letters too. It also works conversely. The top public high school in our area, number 2 in the state, copied our program with our assistance, and they constantly are in consultation with me about how to run a parallel but modified program, and they run it in the school. The Bexley Education Foundation uses a lot of our materials to run a teen-centered program locally, and others have used it as a framework for design as well. When I started, there was previously a very strong program which had been dormant for a year, and it was just a great opportunity to review and retool. And as I just feel a responsibility to sort of state back that the Jewish Teen Funders Network resources are what I used when I was redefining this program. The resource materials on the website under full curriculum are really excellent. Not everyone will apply to every program, but I particularly use the San Diego model, the Ramah model, which is for a summer program, but their program is curriculum-based, so it has some elements in it which are really very interesting and very useful. And I'll be using some materials from the Rose Youth Foundation this Sunday at our grant evaluation workshop. The following are just a few elements to consider if you are thinking about putting a program together, or as you're rethinking a program that maybe needs to just be reinvigorated. We started with very strong support from our board. It was, like it says, It was a why wouldn't we, not a question of why. Youth philanthropy is a priority for our foundation. We just believe in it for the engagement factor, and therefore we provide grant dollars from the foundation. Program dollars, what it takes to administer and run the program, food, et cetera, come from our general operations. There's a real commitment to making this program succeed here. We don't ask the teens to participate financially. In fact, that goes against the community funding model that we have in place because they do grant community dollars. It's important that it stays within that realm. For the funding source for grants, we did start with grants raised from the outside, but moved to a self-funded model as it worked better to have independent control over the entire process. I think that that's something that over time may fluctuate a little bit of both, but right now we are self-funded. In terms of structure, determine the optimal number of teens in a room for productive discussion. And then almost as an aside, I say add 2. Scheduling is our biggest obstacle. Scheduling is an obstacle for any program that ever works with teens. And we have decided that we have a few alternates that sit with us. Whatever your optimal number is for discussion, then we try to have a couple extra to make sure that we always have a strong presence in the room. Not necessarily a huge number of people, but we add a little cushion there. How many meetings can you require and still maintain productive attendance? Because of the profile of teen we want to attract, we only require 3 or 4 meetings. They're scheduled between sports seasons and conclude before major academic testing in the spring. And our meetings are an orientation and funding priority decision meeting where they discuss and decide topic, guidelines, application, timeline, et cetera, of mechanics. A grant evaluation workshop, which we're having this Sunday, which is how to read and evaluate a grant proposal, including budgeting, case studies from prior years, and summary and distribution of proposals that were submitted. So it's their first chance to take a look at what proposals they'll be viewing. And then we hold a very long, very detailed deliberation session with liaison meetings, which are face-to-face presentations by the applicants, ranking and review, and funding discussion and consensus. When site visits are meaningful and helpful to the decision of the grant, we hold them. In other cases, these liaison meetings really take the place of that. There's a portion of the meeting that's getting to know the organization, and then there's a portion of it that gets to know the proposal and question and answer sessions. And we try to do as much out of the room as we can. We have review, research, collaboration. All of these things are done at home, outside of the meeting time, or online collaboratively. And since adopting this minimalist schedule, our attendance has been excellent. And so there's a balance there of what is not enough and at what point can you require the least number of minutes in the room and still have the depth that you need to make financial decisions. And this is just my own little take on a bad picture, but is this too many teens to discuss community strategies? We would love to include everyone who'd like to be a part of our program, but you can see this would be a little unwieldy when discussing money, basically. They have a responsibility to do that well. If you're thinking about how to fund the program, what's your total grant pool? In our case, the foundation rules for our regular grant committees are what we follow, and the teams determine the criteria. We have a relatively small amount to grant each year, $5,000, but it seems like a solid number for the proposals which can be completed within the grant period and which are easily understood by teens. They're able to understand that a few $1,000s is enough to make an excellent program, but don't have the depth and the time to understand perhaps a proposal for $50,000, so to speak. That given our limited time requirement, the money seems to match the proposals that come in. For accountability, We have many forms of accountability. The basic standard is that teen board members are all fund holders through B'nai Tzedek, so they have a personal financial stake in the Jewish community here. This gives them the quote-unquote authority to make decisions regarding community dollars because they have dollars in the community pot, as would any other stakeholder. This is important in order to allow them an equal voice when recommending grants to the Board of Trustees, and so they can come into the room and they can feel as if they are regular grant committee walking in, making the recommendations, and going through the process. The application process timelines and the grant period timelines are critical and should be determined by your community needs. We currently run a school year program with the fiscal year July to June, but we've adjusted that over time, and different years require different timing. And I just want to close by saying that these kids are amazing. Every year they come to the table ready to work and with enthusiasm and passion and focus for the job at hand. They're excited to get there. Our teens, our community, and our foundation are richer for the shared experience. And I think that these kids really, they come out talking about it. And I think that's part of our goal too, is to make them have a lasting memory and a lasting positive experience with us at the foundation. So that's the Columbus Jewish Foundation.
Thank you so much, Debbie. So we've heard from our two presenters today about two takes on integrating a teen foundation into their individual giving program. I want to encourage folks to type any questions in the chat box, and I have a whole bunch, so we'll get started on some of those. So the first question is, have either of you received criticism for having a selective process for your teen foundation, which inhibits the potential for your teen individual fund holders to participate in the collective giving process? So this, not in both cases, it seems all of your individual giving participants are not able to be part of the group process. Has that been a problem? Have you gotten any criticism for that? So I'll invite Andrea to answer first.
It has been challenging when we've had to turn kids away from the program. And what that has done it's caused some conversations to happen within the foundation about starting additional cohort groups. But it's never been so negative that it's never been that bad. And usually the people who are upset that they're getting turned away are people who are trying to do this because it looks really good on a resume, not because they've had a B'nai Tzedek fund for years and they couldn't wait to participate.
Got it. All right. And what about you, Debbie?
We really haven't, because we run an active waiting list where they just know up front that when they're put on the waiting list that they have a higher probability of being included the next year. And because we don't have the problem or the benefit of people signing up for B'nai Tzedek just to be on the Youth Foundation at this point, it's fine. They really are very patient, and it's not usually seniors in high school who are applying for the first time. So we do hold people off, I guess, is the other side of that answer. Sometimes you have to wait a year or sometimes two to be allowed to participate, but we have not had a lot of feedback on that in a negative way.
Great. I'll actually have some folks ask questions themselves. So Celeste, if you want to press *7 to unmute yourself, you can ask that question you just typed in.
Hello, am I on?
There you go.
Okay, fantastic. So Andrea, I was just curious, the online application, do you require parent consent, or does the teen fill it out? How does that work?
The teen fills it out, and then I ask for parental information, and I also have all their parents' information. So I do actually have parents sign a consent form prior to our fall orientation. But kids can apply without their parents' consent.
So how do you, because I'm very interested in doing an online application. I think that's where it needs to be, or do both. But so at what point how do you integrate that parent consent form? Do you mail it? Do you email it? How does that work?
I email the parent consent form, and that needs to be brought back to me signed. And what I do is I'll send that with a welcome letter congratulating the parent on their teen's acceptance.
That's really nice. I like that.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you. So I'll ask another question that came in now. Debbie, you specifically mentioned diversity, and I don't know if Andrea wants to speak to this also, but why is that so important to your process, and how do you achieve it? What do you mean by diversity?
By diversity, we specifically mean diversity among the broader Jewish Central Ohio community, teen community. So diversity means parts of town, different school systems, different synagogues, different youth groups, different backgrounds. We just try to fill as many of the places that can be represented as possible, different viewpoints. We particularly have a member who is an unaffiliated Jewish family, and then we try to spread out across different synagogues and youth group programs, et cetera, to the extent that we can. Specifically, I'm very careful about age diversity. And diversity is probably not the very best word because that has a different connotation in society than it does in the room, but we try to represent well the full community.
Great.
Does that answer that?
Perfect. Andrea, do you have anything to say about that? Does your program consider this question?
What we started to do in the very beginning was reach out to rabbis across the different movements and the different areas in town, trying to have them each submit the name or names of kids that they thought would be outstanding to be a part of our board. And what that has done is created almost like legacy seats on our board where kids really representing a cross-section of the community are talking about it at their synagogues, at their schools, and they've actually gotten younger kids to apply. But it's in our community, it's a very strange one. People are very transient in terms of synagogue affiliation, so it's hard for me at times to keep up with where people are moving around to because it seems like every other year we've got 2 new congregations popping up.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and we have all of those segments represented. The larger synagogues have more representatives, and the smaller synagogues have fewer. Though it's not synagogue, it's not always the synagogue that we look at. It's just general. How many different groups can you represent in your body?
Great. I just want to answer one question. Ben, you asked if we could get these slides. We will be sending the slides to everyone on the call afterwards. If you want to spend more time with the content, and they'll be up on JTFN's website as well. So, Josie, you had a question. Would you press *7 to unmute yourself so you can ask it?
I'm sorry, did you say Josie?
Josie.
Yes, thank you.
There you
sorry.
are.
So actually I have 2 questions.
Even better.
I think my first question, and I'm not 100% sure it's directed towards, but I think it's Andrea. I'm wondering how many teen participants do you convert into adult fund holders?
Okay, so we've converted at this point about 10 teens from a B'nai Tzedek teen to a donor-advised fund holder.
Great. Okay.
And that happens once the child is 18 and there's 10,000 or more in their fund. And we currently have another, I'd say, 20 kids who will be becoming donor-advised fund holders as soon as they reach their 18th birthday.
Oh, wonderful. That's great.
It's been very nice, and in fact, last year for one of our kids' 21st birthdays, his parents decided to fully fund him so that they could convert him to a donor-advised fund as a 21st birthday present.
Oh, that such a great idea.
But that was really cool too.
And then I have another question actually for you both, and this goes back to the question that was asked earlier with regard to the criticism for having a selective process. How do you promote your Teen Foundation board so that everyone knows about it, so that perhaps those younger, early bar bat mitzvah age fund holders know that this is something that they want to strive towards? And I'll just say that we have recently restructured our board into something similar to the structure that the two of you have, and some of the parents have concern that since it's only a select group of teens participating in this process, how will the younger teens learn about it?
At our programs, I did this as a very self-serving way. We use our Youth Foundation board as the leaders at B'nai Tzedek events.
Okay.
So these have been the kids that are up front, and they're introduced as the Youth Philanthropy Board, and they're seen as the program leaders. And when we do the small group breakouts, it's always a Youth Foundation board member working with the younger B'nai Tzedek teens. So if you've been participating in B'nai Tzedek programming, you're getting to see these cool older kids who are on the board. And whenever anything is sent out, there's always mention of the board in addition to the other events that we have. Whenever I send something out, it's always to the teen, and their parents are always copied on the messaging. So there's information out there, and with a lot of things, as long as the parents know about it, they can help drive the kids towards the process.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we don't seem to have that problem, actually. It's not a problem. We have applicants from all ages.
And how do they find out about it? Primarily?
Well, it's only B'nai Tzedek fund holders who are eligible to apply, so it goes out through regular B'nai Tzedek communications, and then there are brothers and sisters sometimes know. And because we're specifically looking for maybe a member from a less involved synagogue, then we might know of someone who is a B'nai Tzedek fund holder whom we might approach. But generally the word goes out and the applications come back in. It's not that simple, but it's not a roadblock.
Great.
And we only accept at the most half the board of returning. So it's always half new, half old. So there is an opportunity then to displace someone who's actually graduating out or who decides not to come back because their schedule is too busy the following year or whatever the case may be. There's enough of a rotation there that people do seem to know that it's not difficult to get on, but it's not automatic to get on, that there is a waiting list and you've got to do it on time and you have to have a good application.
And that brings up an interesting point. That's another question. How many years are teens in each of your programs able to participate in the Teen Foundation or Youth Board?
We don't have a specific number of years. It tends to work out just right. I'm not exactly sure what that means. There are some kids who are less active in the room, and they tend to maybe come back for a year and then not come back again. And then there are some who are very, very active and very involved and very passionate about it, and they may tend to be there for another year. If someone with a very similar profile applies, then we would first go to someone who had already sat there and ask them to resign their position for someone new to come in. And because we are looking for that, all those different criteria, grade 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 3 or 4 in each one, it works itself out. We've not had difficult discussions about any of it.
Because our program requires many more meetings, it's a significant time commitment for these kids. So if someone, and we have expectations of participation and time commitment. And if a teen is not participating, we will kindly ask them to step up their attendance or step off the board so other teens can participate. And it does kind of work itself out in terms of the reapplication process.
Great. Now, do teens ever struggle with being involved in both programs? For example, if you become really active in the group process, do they continue to give their individual donations?
In our case, I think they enhance each other in that the Youth Foundation has caused some of the individuals who sit on it to make more active use of their B'nai Tzedek funds. They're just more involved and invested.
That's our case as well. We also find that the kids that are serving on the Youth Foundation board are the ones who will more often ask for donations be made into their personal fund for holiday gifts or birthdays, and they will be the ones that will be donating into their funds to send tributes to family, in addition to regularly making grants from their funds.
I've heard this with a lot of programs that integrate both models, that they really bolster each other. So I back that up with what else I've heard in the field. We're going to have time for one or two more questions. So anybody else who has a question to ask, please type it into the chat or let me know and I'll unmute you to ask. I do have one more right now, but I just want to flag that we are coming upon the end of our time together. So can each of you just lay out how many program hours you actually have the teens in the room together, and also how many hours you would estimate they spend on this work outside? So in planning this kind of program, one could understand what kind of time needs to be allotted. Andrea, you could take it first.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I just know because I just did it for all those National Honor Society things. Last year it was 15.25 hours in the room. It was 12 hours in the room, and then they do about 10 plus. It depends on how intensely they get into research and evaluating each proposal. About 10 plus hours outside of the group dynamic, where they're in the room. When they are in the room, every minute that they're in there is intense. They're very focused and concentrated, and we really use every minute. There's no chatter. There's no socializing. This is work time. And then when they get out of the room and they have time to reflect on what they've done, we have assignments that come back to us, and obviously evaluating the proposals. The written proposal takes them some time to digest, and they have research projects and stuff. So about 10 extra hours, I'd say.
Thank you. And Andrea, do you have an idea of that number?
Yeah, it's about 60 hours over the course of the year. We start with an overnight retreat, and for that one, it's about 12 hours of meetings and programming between the 2 days, and 10 different meetings, 2 hours a meeting. Then they're facilitating the B'nai Tzedek events during the year. They're also the ones that we're calling on and engaging for community service opportunities throughout the year. And they have their site visits that they go on. They each make at least one small group site visit. And then that small group gets together to put together their site visit presentation back to the board. So it's a little over 60 hours a school year that we interact.
And your group meets monthly, correct?
Yeah.
So we can see that there is a broad range into how to integrate this based on the availability of your teens and how much time you have as a staff person to put in. So there's a lot of options in that space between each of your models. Are there any other questions? All right. So I really want to thank both of you, Andrea and Josie. Andrea and Debbie, you put a lot of time into preparing for this presentation, and it's been a while since we've heard from folks who run B'nai Tzedek programs on our calls, so we were excited to have you present today. I also want to thank everybody who participated today. We wouldn't make calls without all of you. If you loved participating on today's call and in general on the Lunch and Learn calls that we offer, we hope that you'll make it to the first national in-person gathering of Teen Philanthropy Program Leaders since 2009. As you probably heard, registration is open for the Jewish Teen Philanthropy Summit, which will take place this June 9th to 10th in New York City. So I encourage everybody to sign up for the conference by next Friday, February 28th, when you'll be able to use our registration code JTFN February and attend the 2-day conference for only $120. And if you're coming from out of town, I also encourage you to read on our summit website about the travel subsidies that are available. So you can go to www.jtfn.org/summit, which we'll also put in the chat box, to learn more about the conference, and feel free to contact me as well if you have any questions. We know that you all value having the opportunity to talk to each other. It was great to hear lots of people having questions on today's call, and what better way to do that than in person. So in a moment I'm going to turn off the recording, and I just want us to be able to say goodbye together and thank you to each other. So everybody will be unmuted in just a second.
The conference has been unmuted.
All right, so thank you to everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah. תודה רבה.
Thank you. Please stand by.